how much to bring our flames into this reality. We set each other free.
Oh, welcome everybody to another edition of the Eagles Nest podcast. You are here with your host, Drew Banky. We are filming live here from the San Luis Valley, Southern Colorado. Right in between Crestone and Taos, just south of Blanca Mountain. And like we always have been since the beginning, we're still here. And man, I got a special guest for you today. It's a good buddy of mine. Uh, it is the guy that helped us legitimize our church, and he is a legal wizard of in the form in the subject of psychedelic churches. His name is Greg Lake. And I've had the honor of calling him a friend for the past couple of years. And he really helped us out forming our church and really getting some type of quote unquote legal protection for our church. Again, that everybody knows the psychedelic church is a gray area, and who better to have on tonight to join us than Greg and shed a little bit of light on where we're at. Really, our main focus tonight is going to be where we're at in the legal movement of the psychedelic movement, and how legal churches are, and how to pick a good church, and how to find legitimate healing, I guess, and what this looks like moving forward. I'm also gonna ask him, what's it looking like moving forward? What's for the next 5-10 years of the psychedelic movement, psychedelic churches, mainly ayahuasca and San Pedro, and we're gonna touch on peyote and some of the other subjects that our people are talking about in this movement that maybe bring up a lot of questions depending on who you're talking to or what your background. Some of these plants can bring up some feelings depending on how they're being used. So we're going to talk about that as well. And whatever else the universe comes up. So what is other than that, let's get some house cleaning done for Drew. What is Drew going to be? Let's see. I got a ceremony coming up. Me and Ella are going to do a private ceremony in Arizona next weekend. Then we're coming back home, and then we're getting ready to go to Arkansas. We're going to go there and do a private ceremony there for a small group in the Ozarks. Then we're going to come back home, pack up the camper, and get ready to be on the road for the next couple weeks, because we're going to be in Pinkston, South Dakota, not Wagner anymore. It's Pinkston, South Dakota, at the Star Knowledge 1111 gathering honoring Chief Golden Light Eagle. It's going to be the 26th annual. I got the honor of speaking there alongside Laura Eisenhower, um, Sergio, and just a whole list of people that is going to be there. You're not going to want to miss it. It's an amazing event. The synchronicities of this event is just lines up. 11/11/2020. It's a Star Knowledge Conference, and it's going to be honoring Chief Golden Light Eagle. It's put on by Nikki, his daughter, and she's plans on making this a yearly event to honor, to keep this going and keep the message of her late father going. And I can't wait to go there and share. I'm going to be uh, if you haven't got your tickets and you don't have anything to do on 11/11, go to Star Knowledge Conference. Let me see if I can get. I got a banner. I got a banner. Yeah, I do. Here we go. Right there. There's your website. Go check that out. You can get links to the tickets. They range from $50 to $111, just over $100, something like that. For 3 days, you're gonna see people. You're gonna hear some amazing things. I'm gonna be sharing my demonstration on telekinesis and show you some things that are magnetized, some feathers that are magnetized. I'm going to show you uh, some things with telekinesis. I'm going to show you how you can move things with your mind. And if you come to my seminar, there's a good chance that my goal, everyone by the end of it is going to move something with their mind. So come check us out. It's a pretty bold statement, but I'm pretty confident myself. So come check us out next month, Star Knowledge 1111. That's in South Dakota, just a few weeks from now. And so we're 11th, 12th, 13th, we're going to be there November. And then me and Ella are going to go down to Orlando, and I'm going to be speaking, presenting, and we're also going to have a booth there, signing books, merchandise. The Ella's Trust and Surrender line, clothing line we're going to have some of the newest, some of the first editions of that line there is going to be released at that festival. So that is Zen Awakening Festival. There you go. Scrolling across the bottom. ZenAwakeningFestival.com. That's going to be Orlando, near Orlando. That's November 18th, 19th, 21st, 20th, and 21st. So come check us out there. You can get your tickets. I think they still have some available. Get them before they're sold out, because they will sell out. And without further ado, drum roll. This is my buddy Greg Lake. He is an author, attorney, and ultimately just an instrument for the psychedelic movement. And I'm so honored to be your friend. I'm so honored to have you on Eagles Nest podcast. Welcome, brother.
Hey, thank you, Drew. I'm honored to be here. I think this is my second, maybe I know my second, possibly third time coming to visit you, and it's always a pleasure. And I think we always engage in really productive, engaging conversation. So glad to be here.
I love it, man. The collaboration. I love, ultimately we're all just particles of source going through this, and each moment that we interact, we're going through that moment with, ultimately another part of ourselves. So,
Yep.
it's always a beautiful collaboration. I can't wait to see what we get into in this, in this conversation here. So, what's new for you? I think you got some big news, maybe personal news, but you got some big. Maybe you just got married. Is that true?
I did. I just got married 2 weekends ago here in Florida.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
congratulations again. And man, it couldn't happen to a better person. And uh, getting to know your partner a little bit, Jenna. Just a little bit that I do know about her. She seems like just a wonderful being and a perfect match for you. So I'm just, man, congratulations.
Yeah, we live together. She helps me. We work. I mean, to be honest, like a lot of my successes over the last year probably would not have happened without her. And we're together all the time, every day, and it's never one time have I felt like, oh, I want to, get away from her. So it's been really good, and just I tell people the best decision I've made in life to date was decide to marry her.
Oh man,
And
that's
I'm
awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, it's always important to remember, on this path, people get caught up and sometimes get too far into the vision and chasing a vision, and they don't understand, like the real gift is our existence in each breath, and what ultimately who we share our time with, and what we do with our lives. So yeah, it's really good to see that part coming into your walk, man. I'm really
I
happy for you.
appreciate it. Yeah, it's been it's my first marriage. I'm 36, be 37 this next year, and yeah, I think because I went through an addiction, I was in treatment for a long time, but I remained single for about 5 years. And I think I was able to really know myself and put me in a certain frequency to meet such a beautiful, awesome person to spend my life with. And it's just like, I didn't worry it or try to force anything. Source spirit just put her in my life. And it's almost like from day one, I knew that, and I don't know whether we're part of the same spirit or whether we have lived so many past lives together, but there's some type of soul connection there that
Mhm.
it was immediately apparent to me. So
Mhm. That's beautiful, man. So
Mhm.
what else you got going on? Yeah, you How many books you up to now, by the way? I lost
Well,
count.
I've written 3 books in about 2.5 years. I've sworn I will write some more before I leave this earth, but I'm taking a break. I love to write. I was a trial and appellate lawyer before I came and started doing this Entheogenic church work full time. So legal research and writing is really where I channel at, I guess I would say. It's easiest for me to like kind of channel and flow in that environment. But yeah, I'm taking a break from books for a while, but it's been a blessing. And I'll say this to everybody that's listening. It's like, if you think that there's a book idea, and you can self-publish on Amazon, and so if there's a book idea, like, look, just go write the first paragraph and just let it flow, because the book, I'm sure you can attest this, Drew, the book has opened so many doors for me that otherwise would have not been available. And I encourage everyone who has that idea that they've been stewing on for years, like, just go do it. Do it.
Yeah, I never thought of myself as an author. I never would have dreamed I was ever going to be an author,
Yeah.
But and I think you could probably attest to this, like that calling to write a book. When a book comes, you'll know it,
Yeah.
and because it will keep telling, it will keep people keep telling you, man, you need to write a book. You're gonna have dreams about it. You're gonna have, you're gonna have these downloads come, and like what I come to really in my walk was this information. If we truly are like moving into this evolutionary shift to this understanding that we're all one, but we're still separate and moving forward, you know, that means whatever's coming to me like belongs to everybody. So, you know, it if I got one word of advice for someone, please share it, because you may have a puzzle piece for the next person, and you may save a life by just speaking a word, as long as it's coming from a true heart, and not coming from any place of ego or anything like that. If it's really coming from, if it's you really think it's a download, or you really think you have a book, please share it with the world, because literally you might have the puzzle piece that the person beside you may need. And that's what really struck me when all this started coming through.
Yeah.
My books.
Yeah, so my first book was the result of an entity encounter and a deep mushroom journey. Was just straight told to me like, "Hey, write this book on psilocybin, your higher path will be revealed." And so I wrote my first book about the mental health research that had been done on psilocybin up until that date. And like literally, I shit you not, within a week of publishing it, I was approached to do this type of church work. And then from there, everything is just kind of synchronized and fallen right into place. And so, yeah, but it did take me a hump. It took me a while to integrate what I was told, because I didn't want to believe that I was going to have to write this book after working a full-time job. How am I going to do this? Right. But, as soon as I sat down to write the first paragraph and got it like through the first page, it was over with from there. I couldn't stop not writing until it was done. And just so glad that I did,
I definitely feel that. I was seeing pictures on social media of your wedding and everything. I saw Ian there, and I thought, I was like, man, I remember like introducing everybody and how you guys' relationship now is just beautiful. And you guys are doing such beautiful work. It's like, I took them in a pride, and like, just seeing like the collaboration, coming together is awesome, man.
Yeah, you did. And Ian's been such a, and one thing I can tell you about me and Ian, we were most definitely, this has all been written in the story, because when I talk to Ian, I leave every single conversation with him more motivated, more driven to go and do this work. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's a wonderful being. I met him at the beginning of the journey. I got asked to come and be part of a film that they ended up using the footage of the ceremony, but I met Ian at a ceremony out in Colorado. Like that's when I lived in Florida. Actually, that was a while ago. But yeah, he's a good dude. I'm so amazed and so happy at the collaboration, the work you guys are doing together. Really doing some amazing work. It's awesome.
Really veteran centered work.
Yeah. So I want to do a little backpedal. What what was that dose of psilocybin that told you to write the book? Was that what changed your trajectory, or was there something that happened before that? What was the point of trajectory change for Greg?
So yeah, man, I started working with sacred mushrooms in 2010. I started growing them right after law school. I learned how to grow them, and I was in an opiate and alcohol addiction at the time, but I was still having mystical experiences. And what it was the mushroom was like, until you shake this, you will not, you will never reach your higher potential with this, right? And I used to just cry, and it wasn't beating me up. It was just telling me a truth that was very hard, that I knew was correct. But like, the physical addiction part of being on opiates and alcohol, it's just like living in prison. Well, after that, I ended up, I was homeless for 2 years. I went and did some time in jail, and then I did 3 years in a lockdown rehab facility where I really started to develop spiritually in there. And then when I got out, after being confined in a very rigid living environment for 3 years, it's really overwhelming and a lot of anxiety to be then tossed out into the free world where you can do anything you want. So I turned back to the sacred mushrooms and did me another grow and started working with them. And I noticed then when I was sober and kind of and spiritually fit, man, I was having some incredible experiences, just completely mystical, primary religious in nature. And it was like the second or third one where Anubis appeared in my living room in the complete darkness and telepathically gave me this message to write the book. And I'd never even thought about having, I didn't know at that time that you could self-publish on Amazon. True to form, about 2 days later, I'm randomly on YouTube, and it's like this guy self-publishing with Dell. And so I started like looking at it, and then I figured out, oh, you can self-publish on Amazon. And then from there, it was just like getting familiar with that process, and then jumping straight into the research and writing for me.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Amazing. Yeah, it's I always like to hear like the what happened and the change.
Mhm.
The rest of the story is interesting, but that moment that everything changes for you, that's that and some people don't believe that these things are possible. Like I've seen I've seen all kinds of stuff like that. So
Mhm.
it's not out of my realm of possibility for that
Right.
happening. And yeah, these entities, it is true that there is only one consciousness, and we're all particles of that.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of particles of that, and the energy never. They talk about energy never dies, and things like that. That's one thing I can attest to from my near death experiences, that I never died. My energy. If you were to cover up the camera and you couldn't see Drew, but I was still speaking like that, that vibration of Drew was always there, and that never stopped. So I really, really, truly feel that that's the truth that
Mhm.
happens for everything. So that means that anyone that's ever been here, their energy is still um, alive and well in some form, whether that be in physical form or not. I think it's still here.
That's right.
Phew. So the first book, what's let's give a synopsis of it. How's it doing? And we're just go book by book, and so
Yeah, so first book, Psychedelics and Mental Health Series, psilocybin subtitle. And I do admit I will continue the series one day, but it's like I went from this to church work. So obviously that kind of drove the evolution of my books. But yeah, I'll tell you, I was in rehab for 3 years, and everyone I was in there with were on antidepressants and all these other medications. And some external force kept telling me in there, you don't need that. You don't need that, right? But despite taking all these medications, people were relapsing, like doing stupid stuff, like still depressed. And so when I got out of rehab, I started to see the research that had been done since really 2012 up into 2016, in the recent, at that time, Johns Hopkins trials. And what did it say? It said, oh, people are having mystical religious experiences, and this is helping them with their depression and these other symptoms. And like I told you earlier, I had mystical experiences prior to that in my addiction, right? So I was like, oh, this makes sense to me, right? Like I've experienced at least the experience, not necessarily the effects, but I've had that experience. And so, really that book was in honor to a lot of people I was in rehab with that died or ended up back in prison or whatever, because, I felt at the time like we need to get this information out, because the quicker this is legalized and legitimized, like the quicker that people like that I was in there with can get the help that they truly deserve. And so that was my motivator. And again, the book is just a compilation of the different, like kind of the history leading up to the beginning of research in the 50s and 60s, just up through at the time, February 2020. It just talks about studies, and then, my commentary on it. And, I remember at the end of that book, I say that, psychedelics is where science and medicine meets the divide. And that statement there has just becoming more and more true in all the work that I'm doing and everything. And so, yeah, that was it kind of fortuitous in a way.
That's awesome. What I got a couple websites here. What are the links that people can find your books at? And are scrolled at the bottom. Is that
Oh, yes,
the
they're all on Amazon. So yeah, psychedelics and mental health series, psilocybin, and you can really just type in my name and just to be, my proper name is George Gregory Lake. So on my books it's George G Lake, but you can type that into Amazon and it should pull up all three of them. I believe.
do you have them linked through this is one of your websites here. Do you have them linked through any of these websites?
No, because, well, I will say this currently on, and this is a good deal for people. Currently on EntheoConnect.com, we're still working on developing it, but we have a landing page, and you can actually download my third book, the PDF, there for free. If people want to hop over there and grab it off there, and I think there is a PayPal donation button, but regardless, like feel free to go grab a copy. Like I'm honored for people to get the information.
Yeah, so here's EthoConnect.com. That's the website he was talking about. And this is his other other website here. So
That's my church website.
that's church website. Cool. So I'm gonna scroll these back and forth through the rest of our conversation. So
appreciate it, man. Yeah.
Cool. So second book, how'd that come about?
Yeah. So second book, I think it was June 2020. I published my first book. Jumped straight into doing the church work, like just completely immersed myself. And mind you, I was working a full-time litigation job at this time and doing church work at night. And yeah, I felt like I had such a good handle on the basics and fundamentals. A friend of mine suggested, hey, you should just put together even a short, simple book about the fundamentals regarding, the church law, the federal, state, and the interplay between. And so, yeah, that second book is like 110 page, just real basic. And this is the number one compliment I've gotten. And why I wrote it is that it's really good layman's version, understandable, of the interplay between state and federal law, what the federal laws are, of that nature. Again, just the basics and fundamentals regarding the law of entheogenic churches.
Yeah, that's a good. I think that's the copy I have. Let's see. Up here. No, I think I have it downstairs.
Yeah, I think you do have a copy. I'm almost
sure.
Yeah,
I think Hector gave me a copy. We swapped some copies when last time I was in Florida. Yeah, it's interesting. We both published our books on June 20. Our first books in June 2020.
We sure did. And I think that's how we kind of linked up in a way too. Is we kind of entered this space, or at least in that part, like at the same time.
Yeah. It's crazy because I started off my story about publishing my books. I had solar, but I had all the solar equipment, but I didn't have enough money to have it set up. So I started YouTubing it, and then I figured out, wow, I could do this on my own. So I set up my whole solar system for my house, like that's running now still, and by myself all through YouTube. And then I had this book, and I was trying to find a publisher and all that stuff, and me setting up the solar basically gave me the message that if I could do that, I could publish my own book. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
that,
very fair. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I published through Amazon and everything. That's how me and Greg actually linked up. That's how we actually met. Yeah, through Amazon. So pretty awesome story. So third book.
So third book, again in the Entheogenic church genre, I guess I would say, but through doing the church work, we always have this, and it's been real kind of as contentious at times, but it's like lineage versus non-lineage. Like, there's certain organizations like Chakruna that'll tell you if you're not attached to some type of strict South American lineage, you're not protected in the law. And through my reading of the case law and then also my academic understanding of religion and of the research tells me otherwise, right? I'm like, no, no, no. Like, here's the deal. And this is one of the main points of the book is that the research into psychedelics and theogens since day number one, has said that these substances fairly reliably, in the proper set and setting, effectuate primary religious mystical experiences. I mean, like Stanislav Grof, the premier LSD researcher of all time, it's like second session, he's sitting with somebody, they're like going through a life and death experience. Like, yeah, he learned real quick that this is, and thought, are we getting in a little bit over our heads? Now, obviously he was able through experience to be very effective, good, facilitator, but, recognize, in that, these ancient traditions know a lot that we don't about safely and effectively getting people through a process. But yeah, so my book is a breakdown of, and let me make one more point, the new history. So Dr. Michael Winkelman at Arizona State University, who studies ancient shamanism around the world, he came to the conclusion that when we talk about the spiritual, religious, shamanic, ritualistic use of entheogens, of particularly sacred mushrooms, that this occurred all over the world in ancient times, like in every major area of the world. And that, he even says that it's our shared world religious heritage. So I threw that in the mix with the research and then did an analysis under the law, under the Myers factors of what does this mean under the Meyer factors. But I also, and I think this is a good part of the book, is I factored in my experience working with people. What are the facts on the ground as we're seeing them kind of play out today? And does this mean that these people are indeed engaged in a religious exercise, which I conclude for the run of the mill Entheogenic church? Absolutely. So just a compilation of all that, man, just to kind of really reiterate that, unattached to a lineage, people who are basically, and here's the conclusion that I reach. If people are sincere and they're gathering together to commune with these substances that they hold as sacred for the express purpose and intent of effectuating religious mystical experiences, all other things being equal, they're being safe, they're not distributing outside of the ceremony, that's a protected religious activity in my humble opinion.
I believe so too, and I think I think our spirits, I think the spirit guides and everything definitely agree.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, what I think what brought all this on was us having ayahuasca seizure at the border and everything.
Yes, that's right. I remember that. Mm-hmm.
And you know, turning that turd into a diamond. Looking at it now is probably one of the best things that's ever happened to us. But the message has always been that do your work, and if you're really coming from a heartfelt space, like the guides, the invisible ones on the other side, or the masters, whatever you want to call them, or whatever you want to call it, um it it always has your back as long as you're practicing in a safe way. You may not agree with the situation that comes out of it. You might be in some stressful situations at time, but ultimately it always has your back. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely see there's so much signs of, and we're going to start moving into the conversation of like where we're at now, like. And I want to start off by saying, like, I really got the message. We were doing a ceremony up in Wisconsin, and like we had planned to go up there and do the ceremony like months in advance. And couple weeks before he went up there, Aaron Rodgers come out, and he had his interview with Aubrey, his first interview with Aubrey Marcus, talking about um, how he did ayahuasca. He attributes his two MVP seasons to his ayahuasca experience and all that. And obviously he's from Green Bay, plays in Green Bay and from Wisconsin, so that was a big sign for me that ayahuasca is hitting the mainstream, like in a very, very big way right now. Do you see it that same way? I mean, do you?
Oh, yeah.
It's always been creeping up, but right now I feel like it's
Yeah.
really like.
Oh, yeah. Ever since I stepped into the space, and now I'm not suggesting that I was any kind of catalyst, but ever since I've stepped into the space, from my point of view, with the helping people create churches, like I tell Jen all the time, like timelines are collapsing, like it just like you think a big event happens, like 2 weeks later, like bam, there's a huger, bigger, and we've been lucky that it's all been fairly good press, you know what I mean? And so yeah, it's huge, and people are just, they're not being moved by traditional religions anymore. That's not to say anything bad about them, but people are starving for that primary direct experience, and that's something happened at a spiritual soul level, right? And so they're naturally, kind of like Aaron Rodgers probably was, being called to these medicines. And like at the same time, you have this press coming out like, hey, Aaron Rodgers had it. And so it's driving people to the space. And there's some other factors too, but it's just this whole collusion of events and media and all that's just really creating a huge storm around ayahuasca and psilocybin and a lot of these other entheogenic substances.
Yeah, the connection, the latest thing that subject that I've been talking about with people is the connection between all these fringe phenomenons, be it UFOs, uh, experiences with entities, channeling, dream synchronicities, number synchronicities, plant medicines, meditation, breath work, and all of it, the cold plunges, everything that shakes you, that shakes your reality, and that may be even to include, COVID and everything else that's shaking us out of our reality. It's all connected
Yes.
under this umbrella of a phenomenon that's ultimately signals that we're in our evolutionary shift.
Yep.
And people ask me, what does that mean? And ultimately, I think comes down to the understanding of one consciousness, but still being able to remain a separate being, but operate with the understanding that you share a consciousness with everything around you.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the law of one, the raw material, right? And that's exactly what raw describes, right? We're moving towards fourth density consciousness, man, where it's like a step closer to source, but we're raising both the vibration of planet Earth and of our spirits simultaneously. And I see it right in front of my face, like you say, every day, dude. I'm seeing it, and it feels so good to be a part of it and to help be a catalyst for this, to help people get into the circumstances where they can, because once it's revealed to you, especially through plant medicine, you get it. It's not something that you can just toss aside real easily and go back to being at that lower density or level of consciousness, right? Some people do. Now, don't get me wrong, but it's not an easy move backwards.
Yeah, it's it always, what I've always seen, it's always come with consequences when I've seen it in other people, try to deny the truth or whatever, whatever you want to call it. But once you see, like, what I tell people, you can read my books and you can get an understanding of what I've been through, or you get an understanding of the consciousness vibration where I'm at. But if you really want to understand it, come out and do a ceremony with me, and we're going to mountains, and you can experience it for yourself. And the experience will never leave you. The understanding can come and go, but the experience will never leave you.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, my bufo ceremony, I've had one. most of my spiritual religious views came to me in 15 minutes. Like again, it's nothing I'll ever be able to forget when I experience that cosmic unity. Nowadays when I get mad at someone or like feel like I'm judging someone, like I just think back that like all this separation is just an illusion and that these people are my divine mirrors and I need to learn to unconditionally love them no matter what. And it's easier said than done. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a perfect person, but I do have that fundamental understanding that's helped guide me since then.
I think I'm right there with you, and I'm humble enough to say that I there's times when I forget it.
Yep.
There's times when emotions takes over and the human side takes over, and you definitely forget it in that moment. But yeah, that fundamental understanding is, and really that's going back, that experience. It's a fundamental experience that you had that's ingrained in your cellular DNA,
That's
that
right.
it can be forgotten. It can be overwhelmed by an emotional response in a moment, but yeah, it's coming back to baseline. I think that's part of it too. I think that's part of, and forgiving yourself and being gentle with yourself, and knowing, just because you have the understanding doesn't mean you're going to be able to apply it in every single breath.
That's right. That's
And
right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right, and that's part of self love too. It's just to
mm,
understand that we are humans, and you know what? We're really here to have a human experience, which includes some of these emotions that we deem less desirable, but which are essential for our continued growth. They're catalysts, right?
very well put. Very well put. So where do you see the current state legally of the psychedelic movement? Like, on a let's start with a federal level. I know
Mhm.
that federally we're talking about finally moving marijuana to the other side of the
Oh,
fence.
yeah.
But that's a long way from saying, from understanding that a plant, if it grows from the earth, how do you make that illegal? That's it's absurd to me, but
Yeah, and I just want to make a comment too is that I really started motivated with the psychedelic and theogenic church space, but the more that I learned about the actual Controlled Substances Act and the fact that it was both racist and anti-leftist in intent and obviously in effect, I'm to the point to where, in granted, in my spiritual journey, I've really backed away from politics, really, 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 really. I'm going to tell you one thing: you'll never hear me support a politician who's for upholding that, because I grew up in Texas in a mostly African American town, and I saw just the complete devastation that the Controlled Substances Act did to generations of people. And now that I've kind of got a bird's eye view of all the circumstances that created that, I can't support any politician that continues to uphold such unjust laws, and really unjust across the board. But I mean specifically with certain minority populations. I mean it's
oh my
decimated
god,
generations, man.
it goes it goes definitely targeted minorities on one level, but some of the drug war was definitely targeted on keeping us in the dark. Like,
Oh yeah.
they knew a long they've known for a long time the powers and abilities of these psychedelics.
Yep.
These the master plant teachers, the
Yep.
big five, of what they can do for someone's viewpoint.
Of course
And
they.
it's coming out now. This is my podcast. We talk about all types of,
Mhm.
I have all types of different guests on, and um there's too much proof out there that they have been knowing about consciousness since at least the late 30s.
Mhm.
And we fast forward almost 100 years, and I just think of all the stuff that we're just now starting to figure out and come
Mhm.
about, that the government's known about: how consciousness works, how frequency vibration works, how there's invisible energies, invisible information out here to be tapped into. They've known about it for a very, very long time and kept it from us.
Mhm.
And to know and to tie it back to my understanding, and when I start looking into this and all the people that I've interviewed, it's really clear that the drug war on some level was aimed at stopping this flow of information, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think it was the LSD that they experimented with on all kinds of innocent people. Um, and then also the counterculture movement of the 60s. You know what I mean? They saw that, like, people can use this class of substances and have these experiences that can completely shift and alter their perception of this world, and
Mhm.
completely shift their behavior towards a more collective, unified vibration, right? And obviously, they have an interest in seeing that we're separate, not together, working 9 to 5 to be
Yeah.
productive. In these other states of consciousness, Graham Hancock says it. This isn't the state of consciousness that helps put dollars in their pocket, right? So obviously, we don't want people doing that.
Yeah, no, this is and that was by all means, by all judgment, that was an effective campaign because it
Mhm.
took us from the 60s up until just within the past few years to start breaking out of
That's right.
breaking out of that mindset. We're still dealing with it today. Like, there's, I had a talk with, one of our investors and setting up some meetings and everything and trying to brainstorm about other people that he might have in mind to invest in sacred dreams within everything we got going on. Anyways, one of the conversations was about, like, the people that I'm talking. A lot of people that I'm talking to are of this old mindset, and that is a brainwash. Mindset. That the Dare campaign, all that shit, man, is just it's just
Thank you, right?
it, it goes so deep. It's not even it's it's criminal if you really understand the whole depth of what they're doing. You know,
Mhm.
and
I agree.
when I say they, I don't really know who they is. I think I think it's past politicians. I really think politicians are just uh, puppets for us to look at, and they play out a play. I think that after seeing and finding out UFOs are real over the past couple of years, all these other things. Uh, how much the big question that I have is what else are they hiding? If and it goes so deep for me. I hate to see what else they're hiding.
Yeah,
It's
no, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, kind of back to what about federal law. I'd like to talk about kind of the.
sorry, went off on a tangent.
No, no, it was a good one though, and it's very, very relevant because it permeates damn near everything we're seeing going on today. And
Hmm.
so yeah, let's talk about the church movement. So right now, there are a few cases pending in federal court. Right, we have the Arizona Yahe case. Now, what's happening there? The Arizona Yahe filed suit, and I'm not going to go through the whole drama that happened. It's really sad. Their leader ended up dying through this litigation, but they're in talks with DA. As soon as all the procedural motions cleared and the judge was looking straight at their religious claim, the DEA offered to settle. And so they are currently in settlement negotiations, right? And in that same court, we have the Church of the Eagle and the Condor, which has been groomed by Chacruna and its attorneys for several years. So we can assume that they probably have the best factual scenario that any church could show up in federal court and have. So I would say, in my best estimate, that will probably also end in a settlement, and favorable settlement. And then we have Soul Quest, obviously, which is going to the 11th Circuit, not because they lost at the district court, because the DEA convinced the judge, because they basically wrote a denial letter. They said that under 893, the Controlled Substances Act, if the DEA makes a final agency decision, well, then your only recourse is at the federal circuit court, not the district court, right? Well, in this case, the DEA made a ruling on sincerity. They have no jurisdiction to do that. On their religiousness, they have no jurisdiction to do that. On the safety of Soul Quest practice, they really don't have any much jurisdiction for that. But what happened was, because they have jurisdiction over this diversion question, right, keeping the sacrament secure, the judge, who I believe was wanting not to have to rule on it, said, "Oh, well, they got jurisdiction over this, so this is a final agency decision. So 893." So look. So now Soul Quest is going to go let the 11th Circuit hear it, which is a double-edged sword in a way, because if they get a favorable circuit court opinion, well, that's much, much more potent and powerful, especially across the country, than if it were a district court opinion. right? So, and I tend to think that in cases like this that are kind of new and novel in some sense, I think the more judges that you have weighing in on that, the better, really. So we'll see how that ends up. But right now, overall, the church litigation looks very favorable, right? So then we have also on the federal law, and I think you might be aware of this, the DEA recently retreated from emergency scheduling 7 novel tryptamines that were being researched by these companies. And what happened was they filed emergency scheduling action. The companies hired some good attorneys to show up and file an objection. And unheard of in the history of the DEA, other than the kratom issue, they retreated because they did not have any current credible evidence to bolster their assertions that these substances deserve to be scheduled, right? So when I look at that, and then you also think about MDMA and psilocybin in clinical trials, overall, the picture at the federal level is actually looking pretty good, I believe. Now, marijuana is this anomaly where you're like, what the hell? But we do have President Biden, I think just this last week, saying that look, we're going to pardon all nonviolent marijuana offenders on the federal level, and let's encourage all the state governors to do it. But it all, and he's the #1 offender for the drug laws. Like, he has pushed for stricter, tighter, harshest drug laws the whole time he's in the Senate. But the minute that he gets some political prowess by going the other way, he does it. So I mean, and I don't mean to talk bad about people, but that shows a lot about his character, right? And what really he's in his position for, right? For politics. And so otherwise, yeah, I do like the federal, the way the federal is going right now.
So, I mean, is there a possibility, do you think that they're going to hold a press conference, with it, let's just say within the next year, and just be like, if it's from the planet, it's a plant, and we're just going to leave it at that. We're just going to erase everything. And
Yeah.
if it comes from the earth, it's a plant. How, do you think are we going to see that? I think we're going to see it in our lifetime.
Yeah, so I think what is possible is, the president or some executive agency telling the DEA that look, these natural, it's kind of like they did with marijuana there for a while under President Obama, where they said, look, we're not interested in going after these people. And I think they did go after a couple of people, but, for the most part, disinterested in going after this. I think that's what's going to happen with the church space, is that the DEA is going to be forced to come up either with some type of fair process whereby people can actually apply for an exemption with reasonable timelines, with reasonable standards, or just have a general hands-off policy. And to be honest, the way I see it right now, the DEA has had a general hands-off policy. It's like, yes, they see sacrament, but really the arrest at the federal level we see has mostly been Homeland Security. As far as the DEA, there's really been no direct intervention per se with religious practitioners. And, people ask me this all the time, and they're like, because a lot of people in this space are scared, and I get it. Trust me, I get it. It's a gray area law, like you said earlier, right? But like, when we really look at the facts on the ground, and when we look at the court's analysis, right? So, I was having this conversation. What is the court's analysis? For one, are they sincere? Is it a religious activity? Does the activity pose an extreme or severe health risk to the participants? And then, how are they handling the sacraments? Are they either distributing outside of the ceremony, or are they handling it in a way that's negligent? So, when we look at this analysis, it really breaks down to the safety question, right? If everyone's doing right with the safety. And what we know is that the research every day is coming out showing more and more and more how generally safe that these substances really are, and not only that, for like the psilocybin with me, I don't need the FDA to tell me psilocybin safe. Hell, it's been used for, we know, at least 10,000 plus years with almost a zero body count, right? You can go into any pharmacy or Walmart and probably 9/10 of the over-the-counter stuff that you're going to buy have a statistically higher body count, sometimes significantly, than some of these Schedule I substances, right? So it's like, you got to be kidding me. People need to wake up to this, because really, when you look at it, Drew, when you look at the scheduling, you see a pattern. If something can be synthesized consistently on a chemical level. It can be patented and it can be monetized by the pharmaceutical companies. It will not go on to Schedule 1. Period. End of story. And that's why fentanyl is Schedule 2, and stuff like psilocybin mushrooms and DMT is Schedule 1. That's the only way you can make sense out of that whole scenario.
Yeah, for sure. It's a direct attack against humanity.
Yes,
Ultimately, it's an attack against our God-given right to evolve.
that's
It's
right.
attack against our future, our children. You know, um, my son, my son was born on. A lot of people know he's born on 1/11
Nice.
of this year, and his birthday's coming up and all that. But he was born 3 months early, and we had to spend almost just short of 9 weeks. Just 2 days short of 9 weeks in the NICU, and he was born at 2 pounds. And for me, like being ayahuasquero, Wachumero, like Sundancer, all this stuff, and then be thrown basically having to live in a hospital with my son for uh, you know I didn't I uh, spent as every day with him, spent most nights there in the hospital with him, both me and my wife. And I realized after a while of why, one of the reasons of why this was happening. I was really thrust into it in a very spiritual, high vibrational consciousness.
Mhm.
um and that's not my ego speaking or anything, but it's just I was in this high state of consciousness, especially after having the baby and knowing he's going to survive and all this stuff, and really being in a place of high gratitude. But being in it's basically an institution that was designed to be a revolving door,
Yep.
and very um, not really man, I'm at a loss for words right now. Not very open to a lot of alternative ways of raising the child. They wanted to have it in one particular box. One of the one of the examples I can talk about for sure is the the choice of formula that they wanted Hawk to be on when he left the hospital. He was on it and constantly screaming in pain, like when we left, and he was on breast milk and filling in the gaps with formula. But he was constantly in pain with his stomach. And we Ella started doing some research, and that formula was known to cause long-standing gastrointestinal issues and all this other stuff. But this is the formula that the hospital was basically prescribing for our baby to leave, and this is the only one for uh, for babies in the NICU, like premature babies and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it just was very clear to me that they were making sure in the future that they had a customer. And so we immediately started doing some research. We found a goat milk formula and all this other stuff. His stomach issues cleared up. He still got gas every now and then, but
Yeah.
the pain and the screaming that was starting with him, is gone now, and he's really thriving. We made that switch very, very early on,
Mhm.
and he's thriving now. And it's if people really, really open up and understand how deep that they are under this spell of the borders and countries and the separation that goes on so many levels, all the way down to our physical self, all the way out to our countries, our earth, space force, people coming at us. We're gonna blow them out of the sky with our fucking lasers and blow up planets and all kinds of other shit. And the level of separation that is fed to us is and how the system feeds itself, it's insane. But if we know that this is possible, we know that there's other options too, that we can take control of it.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that we can do that, Greg? Like outside of psychedelic medicines, like what have you come what's your practices?
Oh, as far as like staying away from the medical office.
um All of it, just keeping yourself out of the matrix,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah. Well, with doing legal work, obviously it's been this way. It's like I got to kind of keep one foot in and one foot out. So it's like for me,
right,
it's finding that healthy balance. But for me, I had a near death situation one time where like literally I was gonna die of thirst, but I found like this small pond of water and drank. So I'm extremely grateful for water, right? So every morning I wake up with a bottle of water, a glass bottle with sacred geometry on it, and I just hug it and just cry and feel that gratitude, man. It's like the first emotion I feel every single day. And then I take me a sip and then I feed the rest to my sacred cactus. But for me, it's that morning routine, that first high vibrational feeling that really just sets the tone for my day. And I really can kind of attribute that to my overall health, you know? And beyond that, just trying to eat as clean as I can. And I like to exercise and stuff too. I think also makes a big difference. But yeah, I've been big. I try to stay out of doctor's office, man, because I'm like you. I know that like it's a system set up to bring you back, right? You go get on those medications they give you. You're a customer for life for the most part, unless it's like an antibiotic to take for 10 days. Most everything they're going to prescribe you is a long-term commitment, and it really just padding the symptoms. And I'm a firm believer that we can heal ourselves. We can
yeah,
for sure heal ourselves with proper thoughts, manifestations, mantra. All that stuff is great stuff. Meditation can't be understated. Just how important that is to really just get in touch with us, with your emotions, with your feelings, with your thoughts. That's when you really start to control your life, right? And that's where these things that we've been talking about with the government and all these other unseen forces really become apparent. And once they become apparent, then you have a choice, right? Am I going to pander to this, or am I going to avoid this, or am I going to fight this? And I think there's a healthy balance between the fight and the ignore that needs to be reached, right? But it's like just this whole system of kind of getting in touch with yourself, and the answers will be revealed. We are the medicine. You just need to be there in that place centered, to get those answers.
yeah, I really think so. Just I tell people there's no really real answer on how because there's so many variables. There's so many variables in each other's lives and things like that. But there are so many different ways to keep our. I think that's a beautifully put, the balance of the two energies that make up our basically our being. The masculine and feminine energy makes up the source energy. That's I coined this phrase a couple months ago. It's like the trifecta of existence of the masculine energy and then the source, and also the being on two legs but having the one consciousness,
Mhm,
and everything pointing to those sacred triangles or sacred pyramids, the Merkabas, all this stuff.
mhm.
That's one thing I think and this is some of the speeches I'm doing in the next coming weeks at these conferences and stuff is about cosmic mindset and cosmic manifestation. I think near death, these psychedelic experiences, meditation, and all that, they allow us at some point to view the earth from the aspect of off planet, from the aspect of, say, the moon or another planet. And we see the earth from an outside point of view, and then we can understand everything that happens here on this earth in a much deeper way.
Yes.
And I think that's what it boils down to. I think all this stuff is to give us the cosmic mindset.
Mhm.
Man, there's Billy Carson told me. I want to quote Billy Carson. He told me this thing. He goes, "If you really want to abundance, build abundance for a dynasty." And
Mhm.
then for your children, your children's children, focus on building a dynasty for them. In a good way.
Yeah.
Not a bad way. Abundance
Yeah.
in all forms in the future, but do it. Aim for 3 or 4 generations ahead, and then the abundance. You're overshooting your goals, so abundance will obviously like fall in front of your feet. I think the same goes true for your peace and sovereignty.
Mhm.
Shoot shoot for peace and sovereignty without boundaries, and you'll find a much smoother ride on your current journey.
That reminds me of a Native American saying where it's like, today strive to plant seeds that will be sown and reaped 7 generations from now. And so that really hits me, like doing this church work. I feel like I'm planting seeds so that way one day your son and all of our progeny will be able to commune according to the dictates of their own conscience, without having to look over their shoulder, right? And so that's what really strives me a lot to do what I do. Maybe we'll see full legalization in our time, possibly so, but I know regardless that I can plant seeds today that can move, reality in that direction.
I totally agree. And man, what there was I can't remember the shaman, but he said one thing. He's like, you can affect a lot more change in in the unbounded realm. You can affect change in this bounded realm a lot better in the unbounded realm. So take your heart and take your intentions. And I invite people to do this that has experience, and that maybe listen to this or may listen to this in the future, that has maybe what they would consider extended experience in the psychedelic world. Go into Take intentions into that, not only for your own personal growth, but take also an intention in there for the bigger movement. And if we start whittling away at this iceberg, before we know it, it won't be there anymore, and we can affect that from our spirit, from our ceremonial spaces. So I invite anyone listening to do that, to affect change in whatever way. I personally would. I don't want legalization. I want the plant. I want the rights of the plant and the earth to be recognized.
Yep.
And I want it to be recognized that there is no separation between the plant, the earth, and myself. We
Right.
all have equal rights to those. This brings me to a fringe. This a lot. There's a lot of controversy about the peyote, the
Yeah, yeah,
fu- the,
yeah,
the
there is.
future of peyote. My
Yeah.
personal stance. I have experience in the NAC, been in several NAC meetings, and there is a division even in the NAC on how this is looked at. If we're gonna move forward, and we're gonna move forward, and basically say a plant comes from the earth, it's a sacred plant and everyone has a right to it. Peyote has to evolve past where it's at right now, and this is just my own personal viewpoint of it. I think it needs to be included, and I think that when it's not included in verbiage and all this other things, there's a way to there's a way to honor the ancestral
Hmm.
history
Hmm.
behind Native Americans and the sacred use of peyote. But there's also a way to integrate it, because uh I know I there's a lot of non-natives that have no native blood at all that has used peyote and have profound experiences and life-changing experiences from it, particularly with addiction, depression, PTSD, and veterans.
Yep.
So I believe it's a tool that can't be um looked over. What is your viewpoint towards this? And I know that you're gonna be starting arguments either way you go on this,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Oh, I know. Well, let me preface it with this: is that I've been working particularly just growing and working with San Pedro, cactus spirits, and um, they're very strong. And to be honest with you, when I talk about sacred cactus, like I can't really separate like my personal feelings for them and peyote because I have sat with peyote, uh, and know plenty of people who propagate peyote, and like it's just such a beautiful medicine. But look, I absolutely respect the indigenous people's rights to the medicine, and more specifically, I respect their rights to the medicine in the ground in their land. You know what I mean? But I do feel that like people as a human being, we should be able to work and grow and harvest our own peyote within the privacy of our own property and build our own relationship with peyote. and commune with it that way, right? So again, I respect their lands, their rights, and the thing about it is that when you sit in a Native American teepee, man, there is so much just unbelievable spiritual knowledge that is bestowed there, and it's like I just wish that more and more of that could be shared with the world. Some of the greatest spiritual teachings I've ever heard uttered were in a teepee ceremony with peyote. And I just, I hope moving forward that regardless of whether the peyote spreads or we're allowed to cultivate or not, I just hope that the natives will be more, not that they're being not forthcoming, but just I hope that those spiritual teachings and knowledge will be shared much more widely, because especially as it relates to our relationship with the earth, they have some just incredible knowledge and insight that I think should be shared. But yeah, it's a very complex, multifaceted issue, and it's very divisive. And I'll say this about these divisive issues, that spiritually, I've moved to where I've tried to avoid them. To be honest with you, Drew, for a lot of times people ask me about this. I won't really necessarily comment on it, but I'll just say this. I love the cat. I've been working with San Pedro for almost a year now, propagating it, and like, man, it's an incredible. I mean, I get downloads just working with them, propagating them. They're so sacred. And so I just like that.
It's a smart. They're smart. They're very smart. And I definitely feel the same way. I think the moving forward, I think a big message come to me, the private peyote grows is the way that peyote is really going to continue to move forward. I do agree with you that the ancestral lands that have been used by the Huacholis, and also the land in southern Texas, the Sonoran Desert, all that stuff where the peyote grows. I think that I'm fine, and I totally agree with that belonging to the ancestral lineage of that land to collect there. I don't think it's right for any non-natives or actually anyone outside those tribes even to be collecting peyote in those ways. I do know that I don't see peyote going extinct, because I've seen large private collections
Yeah,
of
Europe, they
peyote.
have a lot of them, man. Europe, they've been killing it, just growing peyote for like 30, 40 years. There's some people over there with enormous private collections. And then with grafting, I've seen like in Asia somewhere where they like have peyotes the size of basketballs, like
Yeah, they're huge, dude.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've been propagating San Pedro for about 4 years now, and yeah, I'm up to about, I think I'm up to 24 right now
Nice.
that are all due to be. So I'm about to double my whole thing, because they need to be chopped and repropagated. But
Yeah,
yeah, the San Pedro will the cactus, all the cactuses, both the cactus will teach you so much if you see it growing, especially working with San Pedro so much. It's so smart. I was watering it one time, and I was watering without, just at the bottom, and just getting the dirt wet around the base of the cactus and everything. And the cactus told me, it's like, I also can drink through my skin, just how
yeah,
you
yeah,
just absorb through your skin. And so I started spraying. I'd water, but I'd also spray, like with a little spray bottle. So all the cactus get like a little spray, and they started growing much faster.
Mhm.
And then I would watch the the water roll down the eaves troughing that's naturally made with the San Pedro, and direct the water to the base of the San Pedro. It's so smart, and how I got to see in Southern California near Palomar Mountain, close to San Diego. That's where I got a lot of my starts from. There's large gardens there, like very large plants, like over 30 feet tall, and like thousands of plants in one garden, and just huge walls of San Pedro, and 8 to 10 inches in diameter. And they told me that's how they teach us patience, because that's how they walk.
That's
They
right.
get to a certain height, they fall down, and
Mhm.
then they're travel. That's how it takes them 10 to 15 years or more, to cover 20 feet,
Mhm.
because they have to grow to 20, 30 feet, fall
Mhm.
down, and then they're yeah. But the San Pedro, all the plants are just so magical. The messages that they all have their own particular messages. Definitely peyote and San Pedro have a different spirit for sure. Definitely different vibe to both the spirits, and there's also a familiarity. The mescaline is definitely a combining familiarity
Mhm.
in between those two medicines, but the actual spirit of peyote and wachuma definitely are distinct
Yeah,
spirits.
you're right. And I tell you, with me, man, every time I get a little pup, dude, it's like I'm having a child. I get so excited. I want to wake up every morning, look at it, man. As they're getting bigger, I like to touch them and pet them and just connect with them, and
Yeah.
a real blessing. But again, in that, I have a real strong fervor for cactus rights, man, because I just know so many people. And for me, it's with sacred plants, and really any plants, but really sacred plants, like building a relationship with a plant is incredible. And once you do, you can grow them with ease, right? But it's just
Mhm.
like putting that love and intention into it. And the whole horticulture thing just kind of opens up for you. There's that aha moment, and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just how I tell people our ceremonies are closed loop for energetically closed looped here at Sacred Dreams Within for Wachuma. We
Mhm.
grow it, cook it,
Yep.
commune with it, everything, all closed loop energetically.
Yep.
Our ayahuasca is almost closed loop. I'm cooking ayahuasca now, so I source my own material and everything and cook my own ayahuasca. So maybe one day I'll be closed looped on that, but I think I have to relocate, maybe down south before that would ever happen.
Yeah,
But
but he who stirs the pot sets the intention. So, really the cooking process I would say would be the most crucial anyways. But yeah, I mean, whenever you can do it all in house, as we would say in the corporate world, it brings on a
yeah,
new element of what you're producing and what you're giving out there to the universe.
yeah. So what do you think is coming up for us? Like in the future, say you know. I think for me, I think psilocybin's probably going to be our first one to cross over and be more legalized or
Yeah.
whatever. I definitely see that as a front runner.
Yeah.
Um, what's your take on this? What's your prediction on how this psychedelic movement's going to play out?
Man, I think what we're going to see is in the coming either a rescheduling or unscheduling of entheogenic plant medicine, psilocybin being first. And, it's just one of those things where people you start with psilocybin, you're like, oh man, like this is, I mean, it's intense, it needs to be respected, but essentially it's harmless in a lot of ways, man. And so I think people, and here's one thing that I believe why the DEA retreated scheduling these new tryptamines is because once people consume this, just like these other, and then they look at the scheduling and they're like, how in the hell is this on schedule one, right? And it starts to call into question the whole scheduling artifice, and ultimately calls into question the existence of the DEA, right? And so, I think there's going to be probably a rescheduling and hopefully a descheduling of these over time as people wake up. And again, the movement's moving so quick, and I tell people this all the time, it's like even if the government woke up tomorrow and wanted to put a stop to people holding sacred plant ceremonies, they don't have enough resources to do it. They just don't. It's moving and it's getting big. Aaron Rodgers is talking about it, so it's like it's moving in that direction. Um, and yeah, man. So no, it's definitely moving in the right direction, and I think really at a fundamental level, meaning that I think the whole scheduling artifice is going to be readdressed, at least as it relates to these substances, if not all of them, because you know again, when you have fentanyl schedule two, and then like some of these very low body count natural things as schedule one, I mean, it's really untenable for any much longer. I would say people are really starting to wake up to this because it's like schedule one, no accepted medical value, high abuse potential, and like the sad thing is that even before it was scheduled, and this is along the topics of my first book, even before psilocybin was scheduled, showed much promise in psychiatry, and was shown to be relatively safe in good controlled settings. And so, you start to realize that ultimately the evidence does not matter to the DEA. It does not matter to the FDA. It's really let's serve the pharmaceutical companies. And, as you were saying earlier, and here's another one I think is going to wake people up. You might be aware of this, is that there was recently pretty much a conclusive study done that showed that antidepressants that treat this chemical imbalance, well, guess what? The chemical imbalance has nothing to do with people being depressed. And really, right before they brought these drugs out, there was really good science back then to suggest the same thing. So it's like intentionally disregard the science, you know what I mean, which we all should be able to rely on, right? Just intentionally disregard to feed these people these pills for 40 years for absolutely zero reason. I mean, I hope this wakes some people up, right? And the good thing about it is that if you're a person on antidepressants right now and you learn that they've been doing nothing for you, you're going to want to demand to be off of them, but you're going to want some relief. And when you're looking in popular culture and media right now, where's the relief? Oh, psychedelics. It's almost in a headline almost every day in this country, right? And so we're going to be seeing these people come into sacred ceremonies. We need to hold space for these people and bring them into the community, because I think one thing people lack is just connection with other humans. And, these retreats and these ceremonies are a great place to achieve genuine connection with the other human being, which in and of itself has a tremendous healing power.
So well put. So what's next for Greg?
So I'm gonna this might take me 5-10 minutes to talk about, but I think it's going to be extremely interesting for you and your viewers. Is my new church, Psilomethoxin. First question up, right? Well, what the hell is Psilomethoxin? So,
Exactly. What is it?
yeah, so this is Wizard Ian basically found out, I won't give the specifics, but he discovered that if you take freebase synthetic 5-MeO-DMT salt and you feed it to a colonizing mushroom substrate, the mushroom uptakes the 5-MeO and 4-hydroxylates it, makes it orally available, and spits it out in the fruiting body, to where these mushroom fruiting bodies don't contain any psilocybin or psilocin. It's psilomethoxin, 4-hydroxylated 5-MeO-DMT, which is a much weaker but orally available and longer acting form of 5-MeO-DMT, right? It's one of these things that at the microdose level, which our church is predominantly a microdose church, it centers you very, very well. It eliminates ruminating and intrusive thoughts, and really on a daily basis can function and channel that source energy at a much more efficient rate. And so, so obviously this is not a specifically scheduled substance. Okay. So, with that, we're all familiar that there's the Analog Act, right? Well, what does the Analog Act say? Well, it says, look, if it's structurally similar to a parent molecule, in this case, 5-MeO, but it also has to have the same or substantially similar, and I hate this word, hallucinogenic effects, right? So obviously we know from now, after we've given it to about 1,000 people, that this does not have the same or substantially similar effects to 5-MeO, which effectuates pretty much Christ consciousness, right? So anyways, and then we have our church. Obviously, Ian and I, that's par for the course for us. This is what we've been dreaming of for a long time, is to bring our own church up, right? So this is kind of the big project for us, where we get to take all of our legal expertise and all of our spiritual knowledge and understanding and dump it into a project. And, our position is that the psilomethoxin represents a perfect union between science and nature, and spirit, I was studying back, science and medicine, and spirit and nature, because I had an ayahuasca journey one time where it was relayed to me that the reason why humans are in such a pickle with the universe, with nature, and especially between each other, is this. It's that, medicine and science and spirituality and religion and nature really belong together to a certain degree, right? And in ancient times they were. Well, when it split, humans started looking to man and not to nature for their healing and divination. And that redefined our relationship with nature, and it redefined our relationship with each other. And that this sacrament is literally a physical manifestation of this reunion, right? So that's where we're at. And our church is an I am church. We're trying to help people tap in to their inner divinity, right, on a daily basis with our sacrament. And I will say this: we're very veteran centered, as you're aware. And we're also very minority centered as well, trying to, to us, because this is new, it's a universal sacrament. And we encourage everybody from any lineage, background, whatever that may be, to come and work with this. And let's develop this protocol together. Let's figure out what the best way this is to be done in ceremony together. So that way, when we do come up with some type of lineage, it's a reflection of all of us on earth, right? It's a human ceremony. And so, yeah, that's our church, man. We're very excited and very honored and blessed to be doing this. I'll say this one more thing: is that we will be doing research through our church just to figure out all about this, right? Like, what are the kind of qualitative, subjective effects and dosage and all that stuff? So that way, because look, we feel that like helping science and medicine at the same time is just going to benefit everybody, right? So that way, we're doing this for humanity. We're trying to bring people together. And we're trying to help people really channel that I am source consciousness on a daily basis.
That's beautiful, man. That is really amazing. Yeah, never heard of that before. Making a new medicine. It does remind me. Our teacher, our connection down South Bernardo. He he's talking a lot about and doing a lot of ceremonies in the UK with people and marrying the two ceremonies together, like doing a light mushroom and marrying it together with the wachuma.
Mhm.
So the mescaline and psilocybin combination at the same time is giving a whole different set of downloads and everything. So um, you know, you know, Changa's like Changa was just born in 2004. That's one of our most requested ceremonies now. Ayahuasca has become definitely second. Changa is definitely the first one that's
Oh, incredible!
requested
Yeah, that's
for us, and it was just born in 2004. And so the evolution, and this is what was told to me because when Changa first came to me about 2 years ago, and wanted me to really start working with it. I was questioning it, and I was like, already work with ayahuasca, and checking in with it in a meditative space. But the ayahuasca is like, you're evolving, I can evolve too. Like
Mhm.
if you're getting more refined and you're getting more powerful and more sovereignty in you, why can't I? You know,
That's
there's a lot of help. There's a lot of holdbacks to drinking liquid ayahuasca, where
right. Mhm.
changa you can is a lot more forgiving.
Mhm.
There's some of the protocol and some of the strictness in the protocol that can be stepped around when working with changa opposed to working with ayahuasca.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, it's just interesting. These medicines are always evolving and making coming into new things. That's so interesting that that psilocybin is marrying with the 5-MeO. That's
And I'll be honest with you, Drew, for a long time when I first got in this space, I was one of these natural only. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do just anything from the earth. And I had slowly kind of evolved from that viewpoint. But really, when I figured out about this, that like, hey, the mushroom is recognizing these synthetic salts. In working with it in this way, it completely blew the lid off. Like, well, where does science and man and nature end? And I'll say
right.
this about our church is that both the synthesis of the salts and the growing of the is done in very very good energy. We take it very seriously, and so we make sure that the people that we work with and coordinate with are in alignment with what we're doing. This isn't let's go make a bunch of money type thing. It's like, let's get this medicine to the people. Let's
Yeah.
take our time. Let's be patient and do this correctly. It's a very important part of us making our medicine.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. There's the strains of the medicine, strains of psilocybin too. Psilocybin is such a big, conversation now.
Yeah.
Ayahuasca is a big conversation, but I think psilocybin, and I do want to say, moving forward, I see it's the psychedelic movement taking the same path. I see it taking the same path that cannabis did,
Hmm.
of starting off of local governments, state governments, and then eventually getting the eventually getting the attention of the federal government.
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
psilocybin taking those same steps, and
Yeah.
all the other entheogens are right behind those,
Yeah.
following that same suit. So I feel like, once we see more cities, municipalities, and
Mhm.
then states coming, I think
Yep.
that's when we can really start looking at the federal government, being like, okay, this is when they're going to start tackling the psychedelic issue.
Yeah.
But
And
the
go
uh, the strands of, I do want to say real quick, the strands of psilocybin are so diverse. I have the I got a really good opportunity to see a wide variety of different strands in this valley and in southern Colorado.
Mhm.
Colorado is one of the leading states in the psilocybin movement,
Mhm.
and so I got my hands on some Marina Sabina Mazatec strain of mushrooms, and that was the first time I ever really experienced ayahuasca level of spirit attached
Mhm.
to a mushroom, and I really met the entity of Marina Sabina, and that was off a microdose of
Yeah.
the Mazatak mushrooms, and that's like a point 0.01, like a tenth
Mhm.
of a gram, and that's what I normally microdose with. But
Yeah.
it's very important for people to understand that there's a just, between golden teachers and Mazatak mushrooms, there's a whole world of difference.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I agree. And yeah, I've noticed too, maybe you go through, is that like as I evolve in this space, I need less to get to go to kind of a
Yeah,
higher realm, because I think we kind of start to exist in that a little bit higher frequency, right? So it doesn't take as much
I
kick
I
to get
agree.
up, there, which is a beautiful thing. And I think hopefully that drives other people to responsibly work with these things in a very sacred and ceremonial fashion, because as you progress, you'll notice that there's perks to it, and
Yeah.
all around.
Yeah, it's about integrating the ceremony in your main ceremony. I tell everybody that, I want to be, that calls us up first timers. They talk about, been calling the ceremony. I was like, well, you've been in the ceremony since you got disconnected from your source. From the minute
Yeah.
you took your first breath and had your umbilical cord cut, you separated from source, and to you've been trying to reconnect, whether you know it or not. That's what you've intuitively been trying to do the whole time,
Yeah.
and so that's your ceremony. This is, and when you go in and commune with these sacraments, you get to see a little bit of truth that you can integrate in this 3D world, because this is the most beautiful thing you've ever experienced. Like, really, like, every breath is such, there's so much chemicals and science, nature, spirit, vibration that goes into each and every breath,
That's right.
that makes it a miracle. Each and every breath is a miracle, and you really have to know that in every moment.
Yeah. That's so I have a few times just microdosed actually inhaling 5-MeO, and like that's the download I get every time. It's just how sacred, and like you're literally channeling source every breath you take, man. And that's why, like, when we do conscious breathing techniques, like that's why you can go to these altered states, man, because you're literally tuning into that life frequency to where you can then go where you want to go, you know.
Yeah, I tell everybody that's the auditory, olfactory connections, everything that connects us to the ceremony. That's why people get scared when they leave out, after a retreat with us. When they're doing their last integration, a lot of it is fear that
Mhm.
they're gonna lose what they just had, moving forward. And I say, well, you can, time's you just learn that time's an illusion. The space, the separation, all that's an illusion. So to take yourself back there, that's why a lot of people that hold ceremony, they have Palo Santo that they offer for, $2 when you're leaving. So you can take this back and burn it and your mind will go back into that ceremony and remind yourself of that vibration that you felt. That's why, we prescribe, look up some of the songs we sung and listen to those. Like when you start getting off that, when you're your masculine and feminine starts becoming off balance again, it'll bring you back into alignment like you was in that ceremony. So
Yeah, when I was fresh out of rehab doing solo mushroom journeys, I had a certain playlist that I listened to. Right, like even today, when I hear those songs, it takes me back to laying on the bed and like having these intense, mystical
Mhm.
experiences, and it just really gives me that fervor that I was bestowed upon me. You know what I mean? Like keep pushing, you got this.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Well, I appreciate everything you're doing for the collective. Oh, I appreciate everything you're doing,
Hey, brother.
particularly for me and my church
Yeah.
and what we're doing. We talked a little bit in the pre-interview about some stuff moving forward, and
Mhm.
yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to continue to build and
Yeah,
uh,
man.
watch you grow and watch
Yeah.
us grow, and yeah, it's just amazing, man. So I
Y'all are
want
doing
to.
y'all are doing beautiful work, man. So just keep it up. And like, the thing I've realized, like doing church work, is just like spirit will bring the people to you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They will be they will be drawn to you. You just keep focusing on, you know, pushing on, and they will come.
Yeah. The work that we're doing, we had a pharmacist that come and did a ceremony with us.
Mhm.
That was really amazing. That was like one of my uh really prayers putting out. I always want a pharmacist to come do ceremony with
Yeah,
us.
yeah, that's a
Um
blessing.
Now we have next weekend we have a guy that's terminally ill. So he's got 3 months to live and never had a breakthrough. And we're going to give him his breakthrough. And I think, for me personally, I love you for you to share a message at the end, like whatever was on your heart in the moment. But for me, moving forward in this moment, I would like to say, if we really want to change the trajectory of our collective, the human collective, we need to change the ideas around death and
Yeah.
how that is. And those of us that's had near death experience or had any or even experiences that we may consider near death in plant medicine ceremonies, there's a certain sovereignty that comes over you and understanding that understands that there is no stop to this,
Mhm.
and I'm really in gratitude that the universe has put the ceremony coming up in front of me. It's some work that's really near and dear to my heart, especially since over the past couple of years I've been dealing with a lot of grief lessons of my own,
Mhm.
and the epiphany hit is we can change grief and how people grieve, but if we can change how people view death before it ever happens,
Mhm.
that's really changing a tidal wave of
Yep.
humanity. So
Yeah.
that's my message. I'd love for you to share yours, brother.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm going to go along the same lines you did. Probably the most important lesson that I learned through my medicine journey through the Bufo was that we are eternal spirit, man. This is just a stop along the way. We're here to have a human experience, to feel these strong emotions and stuff. But like you say, do not fear death. I mean, that doesn't mean go do anything stupid, but do not fear death, right? And just realize even with others, it's a beautiful transition, just as beautiful as it was whenever you watch your son being born. It's the same beautiful transition to watch someone pass to the other side, And when you kind of see it in those terms, here's what I've always said to people: like, if you can overcome the fear of death, you can work back from there and overcome just about any fear that you have, right? And so start there. And does that mean you need to go have a peak experience? Well, maybe it does, or whatever that might be. Strive for it, because once you hit that mark and you really internalize it and you start working backwards, like, you can completely change your life. And I feel like through that you can really try find your higher purpose and your higher calling.
so beautifully said, man. Got to have you back on.
Yeah. Anytime.
Definitely want to keep this continue this conversation down the road and have you
Yes.
back on, and keep checking in and seeing what's new about all this.
Mhm.
All the litigation and federal government, people maybe not understand that the federal government is reluctant to make any decisions one way or the other on anything pertaining in particular to ayahuasca. Just legal precedents, particularly of the UDV and Santo Daime Church. Moving forward, if they keep having favorable decisions made in federal court, eventually the federal government has to step in and make a law of precedence on these. So that's something that's a factor that people I think don't really know about. Moving forward with all this psychedelic movement, we really have the federal government, like I see it. We got them backed into a corner where they're going to have to make a decision one way or the other, and it's I think they're definitely weighing out their options. I definitely feel this very very methodically at this point. So
I agree. And look, if you've been touched through the ceremonial sacred use of sacred entheogens, look online, see where the current litigation is happening with some of these churches. And if you can contribute, if you can find somewhere to contribute a few dollars, do it, because it really goes a long ways to help them and their legal team fight these battles. And it's frontline stuff, right? So it's directly affecting, people, even in a district court in Arizona, directly affecting people all across this country. And so I just encourage everybody to donate money when you can, or to churches who are practicing, right? Because nothing changes if we don't practice. Like Drew's church, him practicing helps push this, sacred agenda forward for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate all your support, brother. Definitely got to have you back on soon.
Cool.
I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your work for the collective. I commend all of it, and I definitely see you as a mirror, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, you too, man. Thank you very much for having me. And again, I'm very grateful, and we'll come back anytime you feel the need. Just shoot me an email.
Sounds good, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right, everybody. That was Greg Lake. If you're listening and viewing over on Facebook, please go over and like us on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. Eagles Nest Podcast with Drew Banky. And got a few questions in the chat room about microdosing. Jillian, you can reach out to Ella. She's really good or you could reach out to this website here. This is Greg's website. You could also reach out to Ella through our website there for questions on microdosing, particularly with psilocybin. Ella went through a lot of courses and knows a lot about microdosing, not only with psilocybin but other mushrooms as well. So yeah, you can reach out through there. Sacred Dreams Within. Yeah, and thanks for joining us tonight. Any new listeners, thanks for joining us. This is the Eagles Nest Podcast with Drew Banky. We cover everything from UFOs, Bigfoot, to ayahuasca, San Pedro, and everything in between. Ultimately, we're focused on the evolutionary shift of humanity, and remind everybody that they're one. We're all one consciousness, and if we can remember that, every day becomes a little bit easier. With that, much love, and Eagles Nest Podcast will probably be off the air probably up until the new year. We got a lot of traveling conferences coming up, so this may be the last interview. I may pop in with a special interview here and there, but if I don't see you now, I'll see you next year. Thanks for joining us on the Eagles Nest Podcast.